I never thought I'd be the kind of woman to ruin her own marriage with a single sentence. You know they say words have power, but we throw them around like they're weightless. We say things when we're angry, when we're tired, when we're trying to be funny. We speak without thinking, especially to the people we feel safest with, because we assume they'll forgive us or they'll never hear it. I assumed he'd never hear it, and even if he did, I thought it wouldn't matter. But it did. It mattered more than I could have imagined. This isn't one of those stories where someone cheats or lies or explodes in rage. It's quieter than that, softer. But maybe that's what makes it worse. Because the kind of heartbreak that sneaks in through the cracks, the kind that comes from carelessness, is the kind that lingers the longest. And that's exactly what happened to me. We'd been married for 6 years, together for almost 9. And if you'd asked anyone on the outside, they'd say we had a solid relationship. We didn't fight much, we handled things as a team, and he was kind. Always kind. Maybe too kind in a way that made me feel restless sometimes, like I had too much space to overthink. I don't know when the spark started to fade, but I noticed myself becoming colder, more distant, picking at things that didn't need to be picked at just to feel something. That night, I was on the phone with my sister. She was venting about dating again, another failed situationship, and somewhere in the middle of all that, I said it. I don't even remember how we got to that point in the conversation, but I remember my exact words clear as day. If I met him now, I probably wouldn't even date him. I laughed after I said it, like it was a harmless little confession, an offhand thought that didn't mean anything. But it meant everything. Because what I didn't know, what I hadn't even considered, was that my husband was standing in the hallway just around the corner. Close enough to hear every word, close enough to hear the truth, at least the version of the truth I carelessly blurted out. He didn't say anything that night, not a single word. He just walked past me later like nothing had happened, brushed his teeth, climbed into bed beside me, and fell asleep facing the wall. I thought maybe he was just tired. I didn't know those were the last few hours of our marriage as I knew it. The next morning, I woke up to silence. The closet door was open, a few of his things were missing, and his phone was gone. There was no note, no text, just absence. A hollow kind of absence that made the air in the room feel heavier. And that's when it hit me he heard me. He heard that one sentence, and instead of confronting me or asking for clarity or giving me a chance to explain, he made a decision, a quiet, devastating decision. He left. Without a fight, without a scene. Just gone. And that was when I realized that sometimes it's not the big betrayals that break a person. Sometimes it's the little moments, the little words that chip away at someone's heart until they're too tired to keep holding on. It's strange how you don't notice something falling apart until it's already in pieces. That's how it was with us. There wasn't some dramatic event that cracked the foundation of our marriage. No big betrayal, no secrets. Just a slow erosion, tiny grains of love and connection slipping away while we were both too distracted to notice. And the thing is, when you live with someone long enough, you stop seeing them clearly. They become part of the background, part of the routine, part of the furniture in your life. Not because you don't care, but because they're always there. You assume they'll always be there. And in that assumption, you grow careless. Or at least I did. He was the type of man who made life easy. The kind who folded the laundry before I asked, who warmed up my car on cold mornings, who always remembered the little things. I used to love those things about him. In the beginning, I would text my friends about how lucky I was, how gentle he was, how unlike the others he seemed. I'd wake up and feel safe, grounded, seen, but somewhere along the way, that safety turned into sameness. That comfort started to feel like a cage. Not because he changed, but because I did. I started craving chaos again. Not the destructive kind, but the kind that makes your heart race. The butterflies, the uncertainty, the challenge. And he didn't challenge me anymore. He let me win every argument. He always asked what I wanted for dinner. He agreed with me when I complained about my boss. He gave me everything I thought I needed, stability, loyalty, love, but I started to see those things as signs of weakness, not strength. Isn't that horrible? I couldn't appreciate peace because I'd become addicted to emotional noise. I remember one night we were watching TV and I glanced over at him. He had this small smile on his face, just content to be sitting next to me. And instead of feeling warm, I felt irritated. Like, how could he be so content when I felt like I was drowning in monotony? I resented his calmness, his consistency, as if those things were flaws and not gifts. I never said anything, though. I kept playing the role of the loving wife. I kissed him goodnight. I texted him during the day. I still said I love you when he brought me tea. But I was drifting. I was slowly checking out while he kept showing up. He started to sense it, I think. Not with accusations or confrontations, but with questions, soft ones. Like, are you okay lately, or do you feel like we're still us? And I would shrug it off, smile, say I was just tired. Work was stressful, hormones, you know, the usual. But the truth was, I was bored. Not with him, with me. With who I'd become inside this life we built. And instead of confronting that, instead of sitting with it and talking to him like a grown woman, I turned my frustration inward. Then I turned it outward onto him. I criticized how he folded towels. I rolled my eyes when he asked me to pick a movie. I forgot birthday's not his, but his sister's his mother's, and I acted like it didn't matter when it did. Little things, death by 1,000 cuts, and he took it all in silence. He didn't fight back. He didn't blame me. He just loved me quietly, and I didn't even see it as love anymore. I saw it as passivity. And that was my mistake. We used to go on Sunday walks together just around the neighborhood. It was our thing. We'd grab coffee walk for an hour, talk about everything and nothing. But over time, those walks got shorter. I'd say I had work to do or that my feet hurt. He stopped asking after a while. We stopped holding hands. And eventually, we stopped walking altogether. There was no big conversation about it. It just faded like so many other little things between us. And yet, despite all of that, he stayed. He never once threatened to leave, never pulled away, never tried to make me feel guilty for changing. He just adapted, adjusted, tried to meet me where I was, even when I didn't know where I was. He'd say things like, I know things feel off lately, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And instead of melting in gratitude, I felt trapped, like his devotion was a leash I hadn't asked for, like he was holding on tighter while I was already halfway out the door. Now, I see it differently. Now, I see the grace in that kind of love, the way he chose me even while I was choosing distance, the way he waited quietly hoping I'd come back emotionally before he had to leave physically. But I didn't. And when he overheard that one sentence, the one I tossed out like a careless joke, he finally understood that I wasn't coming back. Not really, not emotionally, not as his partner. And so he left. At first, I didn't panic. I want to say that right away because people always assume that when someone leaves, the other person immediately falls to pieces. But that's not how it happens. At least, not for me. That first morning when I saw that his side of the closet was half empty and his phone charger was missing, I just stood there. I blinked a few times. My heart didn't race. My breathing didn't change. It was like my brain couldn't compute what was happening. Like it needed a few extra moments to load the error message. I told myself he'd be back by evening. Maybe he just needed some space. Maybe he went to stay with a friend to clear his head. I even texted him just something short and stupid like, "Let me know where you are." And then I waited. I waited in the kitchen making coffee like it was any other morning. I kept glancing at the door expecting to hear his keys jingle. I checked my phone every 3 minutes, staring at the screen like I could will a message to appear, but there was nothing. No read receipt, no dots, no reply. Just silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. That day crawled by. I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't read, couldn't work, couldn't even scroll on my phone without refreshing our text thread like maybe I'd missed something. I kept thinking about what he heard. That one sentence. The tone in my voice when I said it. The casualness. The arrogance. The way I laughed afterward like it was some harmless inside joke. And I started to realize. Maybe it wasn't just what I said that hurt him. Maybe it was that he finally saw the full picture. Maybe he realized that the woman he loved didn't just drift away. She stopped seeing him altogether. The second night was worse, because by then I knew he wasn't coming back. That false hope I clung to for the first 24 hours had evaporated. His side of the bed remained untouched, the sheets still neatly tucked the way he always left them in the morning. He used to tease me about how I never made the bed. "You have a degree, but can't fold a blanket," he'd say with a grin, and I'd roll my eyes and call him a perfectionist. Now, I couldn't bear to touch it. I sat on my half of the mattress like I was anchored there, afraid to move, afraid that any shift would confirm what I already knew: he was gone. I called once. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What was I supposed to say? That I was sorry? That I didn't mean it? That I did mean it, but not the way it sounded? I rehearsed a dozen different apologies in my head, but none of them felt right. They all felt hollow, like a Band-Aid on a wound too deep to cover. Because I wasn't just apologizing for what I said. I was apologizing for months, maybe years, of slowly pushing him away while he tried to hold me close. I started replaying every moment, every missed opportunity to love him better. Every time he made me dinner and I didn't say thank you. Every time he tried to initiate a conversation and I brushed him off. Every small act of love that I met with distance or disinterest. They all came flooding back like a movie on loop, and I hated myself for how easy it had been to ignore. I used to think I was the emotionally intelligent one, the self-aware partner. But all my insight didn't mean anything when I wasn't willing to be honest, not with him and not with myself. The third day, I went looking, not in a dramatic rom-com run-through-the-rain kind of way. I just needed to see if he'd gone to his brother's place, or maybe to that coffee shop he liked. I walked in circles around the city, half hoping I'd run into him, half hoping I wouldn't. Because what if I did? What would I say? How would I explain that the woman who said she wouldn't date him today was actually the same woman who desperately wanted him to come home? I didn't find him. Of course I didn't. He wasn't just taking a break. He was protecting his heart. He left because he finally understood that staying meant slowly losing pieces of himself. And I was the one who handed him the scissors. That night I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. The house felt louder without him. The silence creaked through the walls, echoing in every room. I kept expecting to hear him cough in the bathroom or hum while brushing his teeth, but there was only stillness, and that stillness became unbearable. I realized I had always feared chaos, but this quiet. It was worse, because chaos at least makes noise. It gives you something to react to. Silence just sits with you cold, unwavering, and brutally honest. That's when the tears came. Not dramatic sobs, not screams into a pillow, just silent crying, the kind that feels like your body is mourning something invisible. I wasn't crying because he left. I was crying because I gave him every reason to. And for the first time, I couldn't talk my way out of it. I couldn't spin the narrative. I couldn't blame timing or circumstance or communication issues. The only person responsible for this silence was me. It's amazing, isn't it? The way clarity only shows up after the damage is done. You spend so much time focused on what's missing, on what could be better, on what isn't enough, and you completely miss the beauty of what you already have. I think that's what haunts me the most. Not just that he left, but that he loved me in ways I never understood until I had no access to them anymore. He was the kind of man who showed love through presence. He didn't make grand speeches or write long texts about how much I meant to him. He just showed up, every day, every night, in small, almost invisible ways. I remember how he used to plug in my phone before bed because he knew I'd forget. He'd take the car to get gas if I mentioned I was low without saying anything. He memorized the exact way I liked my eggs, even though I changed my mind every couple of months. It wasn't romantic in the movie script kind of way. It was better. It was real. And I was too busy chasing excitement to notice the value of reliability. I used to tell my friends I wanted passion, fireworks, that intoxicating, can't breathe without you kind of love. I thought what I had with him was too simple, too easy. I told myself I needed something more, but now, sitting here in the quiet he left behind, I finally get it. Passion burns bright, but it burns out. What he gave me wasn't fireworks. It was a steady flame, a warmth I could have carried with me through every storm. And I let it go because I mistook comfort for complacency. There were moments, so many moments that I should have cherished and didn't. Sunday mornings when he'd bring me coffee in bed even if he was running late. The way he always picked up my favorite snacks at the store even when I never asked. The way he listened, really listened when I vented about things he didn't care about. He didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix it. He just sat with me in it, patient, present, soft. I took that softness for granted. I thought it meant he lacked strength. I thought I needed someone more assertive, someone who would push back, challenge me, ignite something fiery in me. But what I needed truly was someone who made me feel safe, and he did that better than anyone ever had. There's something devastating about realizing someone was your safe place after you made them feel unwanted. I pushed him away slowly over time, like erasing someone with a pencil instead of a penlight strokes barely noticeable until the page was blank. And now I wish I could write it all back in ink. He loved me during my worst moods. He forgave my coldness more times than I deserved. I remember one night I came home late, exhausted, irritated, snapping at everything. He had made dinner and I didn't even acknowledge it. I went straight to bed, mumbled a half-hearted thanks, and rolled over. And he cleaned up, left a glass of water on my nightstand, and kissed my forehead while I pretended to sleep. Who does that? Who loves that selflessly? I kept telling myself that I wanted someone who would challenge me, but maybe I just wanted someone who wouldn't leave when I wasn't at my best. And that's exactly who he was. He stayed through the emotional mess I brought to the table. He never weaponized my flaws, never used my past against me, never made me feel small for being human. And the worst part is, I made him feel small without even realizing it, with my indifference, my criticism, my jokes masked as sarcasm, my cold silences when I didn't get my way. I chipped away at his sense of belonging until he didn't feel like home in his own marriage. Sometimes I wonder what it must have felt like for him hearing that sentence. If I met him now, I wouldn't even date him. I said it like a punchline, but to him it was a confirmation. A confirmation of every doubt he'd ever had. Every quiet moment when he wondered if I was still in it. Every glance I didn't return. Every hug I leaned away from. That sentence wasn't just careless, it was cruel, because it erased years of memories. It told him in one breath that none of it had been enough, that he hadn't been enough. And still, he didn't slam the door. He didn't scream or throw things. He left with dignity, with silence. And somehow, that silence said more than any fight ever could. It told me he was done trying to prove his worth to someone who had already decided he wasn't exciting enough to keep. Now I find myself rereading old messages, looking through photos, listening to voice notes I never deleted, and it's like I'm rediscovering him through the lens of loss. He wasn't boring, he wasn't bland, he was consistent, he was loyal, he was good. And I, in all my searching for more, forgot that good men don't come with warning labels or neon signs. They just show up day after day and love you quietly, until they can't anymore. That's what I lost. Not just a husband, but the version of myself I was when he loved me. The softer version. The version that believed in gentle love. And now that it's gone, I don't know how to get her back. I wish I could say I did the noble thing, that I respected his silence, that I let him walk away with the same quiet grace he left me with, but I didn't. Because when you finally realize what you've lost, you panic. You grasp at every piece, even the ones that are already too far gone. You call, you text, you write long messages you'll never send, hoping that somewhere in the noise they'll hear something that makes them stay, or at least turn around. I wasn't ready to accept the stillness, not after all those years of him being there. I couldn't. So I did what people do when they're desperate. I reached out. The first text was short, just 2 words. I'm sorry. I thought maybe keeping it simple would invite a response, a soft entry point, something that didn't demand much but let him know I was aware that I felt the weight of what I'd said. But it stayed unread, for hours, then for days. Eventually, the delivered symbol disappeared. I wasn't blocked, but I wasn't welcome either. I knew that kind of silence. It wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, so I tried again. I sent something longer, I told him I didn't mean what I said, that it came out wrong, that I was trying to make my sister laugh and it was taken out of context. But even as I typed it, I knew I was lying. Not about the context, that part was true, but about not meaning it. I had meant it. I had felt it. I just hadn't realized the damage it would cause until it was too late, and I was hoping I could backpedal my way out of a cliff I'd already fallen from. Still, no response. I left a voicemail one night. It was past midnight and I was sitting on the kitchen floor, wrapped in a blanket, knees pulled to my chest. The light above the sink was on that soft, dim glow that makes everything feel like it's part of a dream you can't wake up from. I pressed call, and when it went to voicemail, I just spoke. My voice cracked after the first sentence. I told him I missed him. I told him the house was too quiet without him. I told him I still made coffee the way he liked it, even though he wasn't there to drink it. Then I paused. There was so much more I wanted to say, but I couldn't find the words. So I just whispered, "Please come home." And I hung up. He didn't call back. He didn't text. He didn't even acknowledge it. And that's when the worst kind of realization settled in. Not that he was angry or hurt or punishing me, but that he was done. That his silence wasn't a placeholder, it was the response. A decision. A boundary. He wasn't waiting for an apology. He wasn't looking for clarity. He had already found it the moment I gave it to him in the form of that careless, thoughtless sentence. If I met him now, I probably wouldn't even date him. He didn't need more words. He didn't need closure, because that sentence had been enough to rewrite the entire story for him. It reframed every moment, every memory, every act of love. If the woman he married didn't see him as worthy now, then maybe she never really did. And who could blame him for walking away from that? I tried to tell myself he'd come around, that maybe he needed time, space, that people say things they don't mean when they're hurting. But deep down, I knew. I knew that this wasn't one of those stories where someone storms out and comes back after a dramatic reunion. There wasn't going to be a tearful airport scene. No handwritten letter on the doorstep. No message that said, "I've been thinking, and I miss you too," because this wasn't about punishment. It was about peace. He left to protect the little pieces of himself I hadn't broken yet, and I had no right to chase him now, not after everything, not after ignoring his needs, his questions, his quiet attempts to pull us back together. He had spent years asking for my attention in small ways, and I spent years brushing it off. Now I was the one asking. And I was finally being met with the same silence I once gave him. It's a strange kind of grief, mourning someone who's still alive, still out there somewhere living without you. I imagine him sometimes sitting in a quiet apartment, maybe sipping coffee with a different kind of peace. A quieter one. One where he doesn't have to wonder if he's enough. I hope he doesn't. I hope he never questions his worth again. Because the truth is, he was always more than enough. He was consistent when I was chaotic. He was patient when I was distant. He stayed long after most people would have left. And when he finally did leave, he did it with dignity I didn't deserve. Now I don't try to contact him anymore. Not because I don't miss him, God, I do, but because I've come to respect the silence. It's not absence anymore. It's his boundary, his peace, and maybe in some way it's his final love letter to me. The one that says I loved you, but I had to love myself more. And I can't argue with that. You always think the hard part is losing someone, but sometimes the harder part is facing yourself in the silence they leave behind. Because once the noise fades, once the arguments, the texts, the movement of shared routines fall away, what's left is you, just you, and that's when you realize how much you've been avoiding your own reflection. Not the one in the mirror, the one in your mind. The version of you don't talk about. The one who pushed love away because she didn't know what to do with it once she had it. That's where I found myself. Sitting in the wreckage of my own choices with nothing left to distract me. No one left to blame. Just the truth I'd been running from for years. I didn't know how to receive love. Not real love. Not the quiet, steady kind that shows up every day. I knew how to romanticize chaos. How to chase validation. How to light fires just to feel something. But when someone gave me safety, stability, peace, I didn't know where to put it. It felt foreign, almost suspicious, and instead of learning to hold it, I pushed it away like it was something dangerous. Growing up, love always came with conditions. It came in pieces rewarded for good behavior, withdrawn at the first sign of failure. I learned to earn love, not accept it freely. I learned that attention came through achievement, affection through perfection. So, when someone like him came along, someone who loved me without asking me to perform, who stayed even when I wasn't at my best, I didn't trust it. I thought there had to be a catch. I waited for him to get bored, to leave, to change. When he didn't, I created distance. Subconsciously, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe a part of me believed if I hurt him first, I'd be safe from the inevitable pain of being left. But he didn't want to leave. He wanted to build something. He wasn't perfect. God knows we both had flaws, but he was present. He made space for me even when I filled that space with silence or sarcasm or cold indifference. And I thought that made me strong. I thought holding him at arm's length gave me control. But all it really gave me was emptiness. It wasn't until he left that I realized how much I needed the version of myself I was when I was with him. Not the version who said that awful sentence. Not the version who let resentment speak louder than love, but the version who felt safe enough to be soft, who laughed more, who didn't feel the need to keep walls up all the time. I had that version in the beginning, but as time passed, I let fear take over. Fear of losing him, fear of being seen too deeply, fear of relying on someone too much and watching them disappear. So instead, I disappeared first, slowly, quietly. I became a shadow of myself inside a relationship that had been built on light. And when he noticed, when he reached out, when he asked the soft questions, I turned the other way. I mistook his emotional maturity for weakness. I mistook his patience for passivity. I thought love had to be loud to be real. But real love isn't loud. It's the way someone learns your coffee order without asking. The way they listen when you rant about something they don't understand. The way they look at you when you're not looking, just to make sure you're okay. I see it now, all of it, and I hate that it took losing him to see myself this clearly. I wish I could say I've healed, that I've done all the inner work and grown past the woman I was. But healing isn't linear, and it certainly isn't clean. Some days I think I'm doing better. I get up. I go to work. I smile at strangers. I tell myself I'm moving on. But then I see something small, an old mug. He used a song. He loved the smell of his cologne in a store, and I'm right back in that moment. That hallway. That sentence. If I met him now, I probably wouldn't even date him. The cruelty of that line still echoes. Not just because of what it did to him, but because of what it revealed about me. It wasn't a statement about him. It was a confession about me. About my inability to see the treasure I had because I was too focused on everything it wasn't. And now I sit here knowing I may never have the chance to tell him all this, to show him the growth, to prove that I've learned that I would choose differently now, that if I met him today, this version of him and this version of me, I wouldn't just date him. I'd hold on tighter, speak softer, stay longer, but I don't get that chance. And that's the cost of careless words, of unspoken gratitude of love, pushed away before it ever had the chance to bloom fully. So I'm learning to live with that, to own it, to grow through it, because if nothing else, I owe him that. He loved me when I didn't know how to love myself, and in leaving, he finally taught me how. Some people leave you loudly with yelling slammed doors and words you can't take back. And some leave you quietly with packed bags, a closed door, and a silence that speaks more than any goodbye ever could. He left quietly, but his absence changed everything. Not just the space we shared, not just the rhythm of my days, but the way I see myself, the way I understand love. I used to think losing someone was about the emptiness they leave behind, and maybe part of it is. But the deeper loss, the one that lingers long after their scent has faded from your pillow, is the version of yourself that you lost with them, the version that felt held, safe, seen. I'm still trying to find her, not for him, not for some chance at getting back what I destroyed, but for me. because I know now what it looks like to be loved fully, and I know what it costs to not recognize it when it's right in front of you. There are still nights when I replay everything: the hallway, that sentence, the silence that followed. I wonder if he ever thinks about me, if he ever scrolls through old photos, if he hears a song and remembers a version of us that was still intact. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Either way, I don't reach out anymore. Some stories are meant to end quietly, some loves are meant to live only in memory. But I want to say this: if you're still with someone who shows up for you, who tries, even when it's hard, who loves you in ways that don't always scream, but always show, don't wait until they're gone to see it. Don't wait for silence to make you listen. Tell them, show them. Because the truth is, love doesn't always come back. Sometimes it just teaches you a lesson so deeply, you carry it with you forever. To those of you listening, thank you. Thank you for sitting in this story with me, for holding space for something I've been too afraid to say out loud until now. I don't know your name or what you've been through, but I know what it feels like to regret the things you didn't say when it mattered. And I know how lonely it can feel when the person you once shared everything with becomes just a memory. So if you're here and you've ever made a mistake you couldn't take back, you're not alone. We're all just trying to figure it out, trying to love better to be better. And maybe if we're lucky, we'll learn to recognize love before it has to leave to be seen. Thank you for being here, for listening, for feeling this with me. I hope wherever you are that you know this: even if you lost someone you loved, you can still find yourself. And that is a journey worth taking.